Hi, I'm Father Michael Orsi. I am your host for Action for Life Television, that good news program, which is the good news with the big G for the gospel of Jesus Christ, and how that gospel guides our lives, and little g, all of the good things that so many people are doing to fulfill the mission to minister to the least of our brothers and sisters. Gospel is a healing tool. It is a message of good news. It is a message of hope. We have with us today Dr. Joseph Roebuck. Now, he is a radiologist. So I'm going to have to talk to you today about, well, do I want to read x-rays? No. But we do want to talk to you about a special ministry that Dr. Roebuck has. Along with being an MD, a radiologist, he's also involved with healing men who go through a post-trauma experience because of an abortion in their lives. And the doctor has a very interesting story. He himself, I believe, over 30 years ago, went through the trauma of having lost his child to abortion. And he's had a tremendous conversion experience, and he realizes that men too suffer because of the loss of a child. And he's going to share some of his story with us today, and then talk about the special ministry he is in to help other men come through the trauma of loss. Dr. Roebuck, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
I am so impressed, first of all, by your resume. It's not every time on this kind of a program that I have a radiologist. But more than just a medical doctor, you are also involved in this special ministry of bringing healing to men who have lost children through abortion. And I know your time is very valuable, and it's valuable for us to have you on the show, but it's also very valuable because not only are you helping people heal who are physically ill, but you're helping people to heal who are emotionally and spiritually ill. Could you first talk to us about what happened to you, and then we'll go into what you have been doing since.
Well, I'll start by telling you, doctors are people too. Along the way, we learn that we can't always be our own best doctors. And so we have to reach out to healing from other people, and particularly in healing from the Lord. The old expression is, doctor, heal thyself. Well, it doesn't work that way. You really need the help of the Lord every step of the way, just like everyone else. Now, I'm a diagnostic radiologist, which means I read MRIs, CT scans, ultrasounds, including obstetric ultrasounds. So I get to see babies early in the process when they're still in the mother's womb. I've read some fetal MRIs in the past before. I once had a chance to look at a 30-week ectopic pregnancy
30
where the baby
weeks?
was
My
growing
gosh.
outside of the uterus, and the placenta insinuated into the small bowel and the liver, and the decision was, what do we do about this baby? So it's a little different experience. Prior to becoming an MD, I was a PhD in biomedical engineering, again involved in medical imaging. So it's all connected over a long period of training.
Wow. So you were able to see in utero exactly what's going on. But were you a doctor at the time of the abortion that personally affected your life?
No, I was a graduate student working on my doctoral degree in engineering. I had decided at that time I wanted to go a different direction in my life. I was pre-med as an undergrad. I ended up giving up the idea of becoming a physician and went on to get my doctoral degree in biomedical engineering. The abortion happened while I was in graduate school. I had been in a long-term relationship with a young woman. 3 years into the relationship, she approached me and told me that she was pregnant, and I didn't know exactly what to do. And back then, I didn't know the right thing to do. I offered to marry her. She declined the invitation, saying that in her own life, her mother and father had had an unpleasant relationship as a result of their being pregnant with her. She was subsequently born, obviously, but then her parents divorced and her life took turns that she didn't like. My crisis of conscience came from not struggling with her when she decided getting married wasn't the right thing and she wanted to proceed with the abortion. And it kind of took off from that.
Did you bear any responsibility for helping her to procure the abortion? Did you take her to the Planned Parenthood or wherever she went? Did you give any money to help her?
I'm glad you asked me that. Every abortion is different. They're like snowflakes. Each one is unique. People bring their own consciences to uh, the conflict of decision of whether or not to have an abortion. In my own case, no, I didn't take her to the abortion clinic. I didn't pay for the abortion. I was there at the hotel room where she was convalescing after the abortion, and I stayed with her for another 2 years after the relationship, but I didn't support her in any kind of material way.
Okay. The relationship you said lasted another 2 years, and then it ended. Did the abortion impact the relationship?
You know, in retrospect, it was a fundamental change in the relationship. You know, it's easy to look back after 30 years. At the time, though, it was just something we didn't talk about. It was no man's land. There was no sense in discussing it. It was a private decision between the two of us, which was a mistake because every abortion, just like every pregnancy, involves a man and a woman. And hiding behind secrecy is the wrong thing to do, in my opinion, because if there's a matter of conscience, I feel I would have been better served had I reached out to my parents at the time rather than standing behind shame. Approached a minister, my priest, my brothers, and my own older brothers who had had experiences in their lives that would have benefited me to avail my advice, to avail myself of their advice. I didn't do any of that. And in retrospect, I think that's where I feel my post-abortive ministry is leading me. I give a talk called Suffering in Silence, the Stigma of Abortion and How It Affects Men. There is no sense in suffering in silence. You know, the Lord calls us to be honest, to be truthful, to reach out to Him through various resources that He avails us of, from prayer to priests to all of the different resources that the churches and various denominations offer us in terms of ministry and spiritual resources.
Okay, so when you took part, to whatever degree,
Right.
in this abortion, you and your girlfriend were rather isolated individuals. Did she confer with her parents or with her clergy, anything like that?
Now, it's a long time ago, but I'm certain I could say we went the route of I'm going on vacation. I'll be back in a couple of days. She had her abortion. She stayed in a hotel for a couple of days with a girlfriend. She convalesced from the post-abortive operative circumstances, and then went home, and it was no longer discussed.
Okay. At what point did the fact of the abortion impact you and cause you emotional turmoil or trauma, whatever you want to call it?
You know, it's clear to me now it affected me from the time I heard it. From the time I heard it, I felt stifled. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to speak to about it. You know, my trust was in my girlfriend. I wanted to respect her privacy, and I didn't want anybody else to know what was going on. It was her decision, and ultimately she's the one who has to live with that. But this is my message to the viewers. The man is involved as well, and it doesn't have to be the father. It could, I should say the father of the child. It could be the father of the mother. It could be the brother of the mother, whoever is involved in putting the abortion over the top in terms of moving from should I do it to doing it.
Okay, so whatever male is involved in the process, in some way you contend that it's going to have an impact on their lives.
I do. I think it's a matter of conscience. And in matters of conscience, we're all called to discern what the Lord would want us to do. And we're all able to do that to various degrees, either because we're not ready to deal with the issue right away, or because we're honest with ourselves and seek help when we don't know the answers to the questions that we're called to answer.
Okay, so you felt from the beginning, you felt uneasy with the whole thing from the beginning.
Right. I couldn't talk to my mother and father because I thought they would have never accepted me as being the father of a child out of wedlock, which is ridiculous because every life is a gift. The short-term problem of being pregnant is far outweighed by the long-term possible consequences of giving up that pregnancy. I'm not saying every male is going to experience things the same way I do, but I'm convinced that there are many men out there, some of whom I've met along my ministry, who have struggled with this, gone through their own discernment process, and are at various phases in their conversion process, reconciling their conscience with their need for forgiveness, their ability to get the forgiveness they seek from the Lord, and then the Lord nourishing that so that they can continue to forgive themselves. I contend it's like it's like a PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. You relive it without necessarily understanding why you're reliving it at various steps along the way.
Okay, so it's a haunting type of thing. But
amen, brother.
Yeah, what we're going to do, we're going to go to a break in a few moments, and then when we come back, I want you to talk about what you are doing now to help other men to go through the process of grieving and then through healing.
Okay.
We'll be back.
I remember now they're even missing from December. God's gone missing Jesus too. Does that even bother you? God's gone missing Jesus too. Looks like the minority rules, and the Christian world looks mighty weak. No fight at all, just turn the cheek. Time to stand and be much bolder. Time to move onward, Christian soldiers. God's gone missing Jesus too. What on earth are you going to do? Oh my God.
And we're back with Dr. Joseph Roebuck, radiologist, but also someone who helps to bring healing to the souls of men who are tortured by having an abortion in their lives, and can be the father, grandfather, brother, somebody who somewhere along the way felt that they could have prevented something evil from happening. Dr. Roebuck now has a special ministry, Project Rachel. And this Project Rachel is not just for women who are suffering from the after effects of abortion, but he is ministering to men who are traumatized by what happened in their life. Just imagine the thought of, I lost my son, I lost my daughter. How old would he have been now? What experience that we have shared together. What would we have done, me and my little girl? It's a terrible thing, folks. It's a terrible thing. But as I said to you earlier, the gospel is good news, and it's hope. And it's hope. We have this expression, Project Rachel. It comes from Jeremiah, Rachel weeping for her children. Rachel weeping for her children. But Jeremiah says that God is going to bring healing, and he's going to bring the dead of Israel back to life again. So the hope here, of course, is the resurrection and seeing those children again when the Lord establishes his kingdom. Doctor, talk about your ministry right now. You took your experience and you are making that experience and healing available to other men. Please tell us about it.
Well, as part of my discernment, I realized that there was time to take a next step. And I reached out to the local Project Rachel coordinator in my diocese. And I thought I was ready to start volunteering for ministry in helping people who were post-abortive. Luckily for me, she realized that I could benefit from doing a Project Rachel's Vineyard Retreat. That's what they're called. It's a weekend retreat where a lot of spiritual guided reflection, group communication about the post-abortive experience comes together. We use the sacraments to really bring a close encounter with Christ front and center. It culminates in a memorial mass. We're having discerned the name of our child. We actually name the child. We're given a certificate of life from a priest, we basically substituting for, if you will, like a birth certificate that really helps to complete the conversion of thinking about my son, who I named Paul, as being a spiritual being that I can have a relationship with. When I am asked for prayers, I frequently send my son Paul at the speed of prayer because I believe that we have a very strong relationship and he's my best emissary.
That's very, very powerful. Could you just repeat the name of the program? It's a weekend program. That way some of our people might be interested in getting involved and going for some of the spiritual graces that they need.
The best place to get that information is a website called rachelsvineyard.org. Rachel's Vineyard is a program that's designed for post-abortive healing for women and men. It is organized across most of the dioceses in the United States, and it even has a presence in several countries outside the United States.
Okay, so this is just for our listeners who are not Catholic, a diocese is a geographical area that the Catholic Church uses to designate these are the churches and these are the organizations that are available for Catholics in this area. Is someone who is a non-Catholic invited, or is there a Project Rachel for people who perhaps are not Catholic, but it's available in another Christian church?
Well, my first answer is no one is turned away from the Rachel's Vineyard weekend retreat in my diocese. It is a ministry that's centered on Christ and the Gospels. However, they've had Jewish people who've gone to those before. There are other organizations that are non-Catholic that I'm aware of, including for people who are Jewish or Muslim. I'm focused on Project Rachel just because that's what my parent organization is, if you will. I volunteer for Project Rachel. I get involved in Project Rachel retreats as the male volunteer. So I'll tell you a little bit about my Project Rachel weekend retreat. There were 12 women. I was the only man. In the beginning, it was very awkward. I felt a certain amount of hostility from the other women in the room, but I'll tell you, by the end of the weekend, we were all friends, and we benefited from having both women and men in the program. I know that for a fact, and I've talked to other men who've had the same experience.
So when these programs take place, is it once a month? Is it once a year? How often does this happen?
There's probably 5 or 6 per year within a particular geographic location, but you can travel to other locations. Again, they're across the United States. In the state that I live in, there are several Project Rachel regions, and so you could cross into a different region if you wanted, say, the anonymity of not doing it in your area.
Okay, so this is it's emotional healing, but I heard you say earlier it's a spiritual experience. So that, you know, when you go to the program, I would imagine something's already happened. The Holy Spirit has already in some way touched somebody's life and say to them, look, you know, you need spiritual healing. There's a program for you where the gospel is being preached, where for Catholics the sacraments are being administered. Tell me about you, how you grew from, you know, your painful experience to leadership now in a healing ministry.
You know, in retrospect, I was called to this during my retreat because I made the observation from the very beginning that I was the only man in the room. Where are all the men? Every one of these abortions that's represented in the room had both a woman and a man involved. I stewed with that for a while, and then I had an opportunity to go to a follow-up meeting of Rachel's Vineyard Retreat alumni, and you start meeting other people who are at various stages in their journey, and one of them invited me to speak at her church because I was a post-abortive male. I wasn't able to shake the invitation. It continued to challenge me in terms of my faith, and I eventually ended up giving that talk. I call it Suffering in Silence, the Stigma of Abortion and How It Affects Men. I put that up on YouTube, by the way. Since then, it's the various people you meet along the way and the ongoing spiritual conversion experience. God loves a sinner. I have met people who inspire me because of their ministry and their faith, the courage to stand outside the shadow of their abortion. I'm challenged, as I told you before, every time I have an opportunity to speak about this, I think my demons come back and warn me that maybe this isn't the right thing to do. But I'm not going to succumb to those kinds of feelings if, in fact, I feel like it's the right thing to do, and that is, in my situation, just talk to men. Realize you're not alone. Realize that Christ has an infinite amount of mercy, an infinite amount of forgiveness, and he will lead you along the path that you need to take, discerning, realizing the errors and difficulties you're having with your conscience, and continuously converting towards his healing and healing yourself.
Okay. This is a wonderful, wonderful program, Project Rachel, Rachel's Vineyard. Most of the time, men don't know about this, though. We have a lot of men hurting out there, but how do we get the word out to them?
You know, it's probably a stereotype, but men and women communicate differently. Yeah, I like to think that women speak with other women, whereas men speak at other men. I'm just putting myself out here, communicating to other men, you're not alone. As a matter of fact, I'm convinced that in Knights of Columbus councils, in a lot of the pro-life rallies, there are men there who are post-abortive who haven't taken the step of just coming out and owning their own error of conscience. I've talked to some of them. They sit in the back of the room at my talks. A lot of times women bring them, or women approach them afterwards because they get the message. They understand at a more fundamental level. Let's face it, it is a woman that bears the pregnancy. But you know, the Bible teaches us in the Gospel of Luke, the first chapter of Luke and the first chapter of Matthew, every pregnancy has its own challenges. When Mary and Joseph and Zechariah and Elizabeth were told about their pregnancies, it wasn't initially taken as a great blessing, something they should welcome. In the case of Zechariah, he was made mute, and Elizabeth spent 5 months feeling ashamed for whatever it was that caused her to feel like this wasn't a gift from God.
So you have a whole testimony in the Bible about people saying, oh my gosh, you know, what happened here? And even, you know, the Virgin Mary, what happened here? God brings about miracles, and life is always a wonderful miracle, and we have to nurture it. But as I said earlier today, people who make mistakes can have those mistakes remade, and a
Amen.
new life can come to them, and you keep in contact through the spiritual channels with your son that was lost to you, your son, Paul. Thank you so much, Doctor. You've been magnificent. Please come back. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day.
We trust that this week's Action for Life program has challenged and encouraged you in honoring, respecting, preserving, and protecting human life. If you'd like to support this ministry or just get more information, we invite you to visit our website at www.actionforlife.net.
Time to move on, we're Christian soldiers. God's gone missing, Jesus too.